There's a huge cost to helping students while they're working independently or while they're working as part of a group. This is a huge topic, I think far bigger than most teachers realize. In fact, I would say that is one of the reasons why education is failing in the culture of teaching, why it is ineffective. Now, the way this looks is that the teacher will give a lesson and then send the students off to solve for X, write the paragraph, do the experiment, whatever it is. And then hands will go up all over the room and the teacher will run around the room, helping individual students, giving encouragement, kneeling down and giving clues, even reteaching what was taught just minutes before. Sometimes they'll refer to things that are written on an easel or on the smart board or whatever it is. But essentially, the teacher is guiding students through their independent work. And so we're going to talk about why helping in this manner is so detrimental to learning. And then we're going to talk about why observing during this time instead is far better. We're going to talk about the keys to making this successful. And then finally, I'm going to answer a question that will no doubt be in your mind. It's a question that I've answered hundreds and hundreds of times, and I have no doubt that it'll come up while we're going over this. Okay, so what are the negative effects of doing this, of sending students off to do their work, and then you going and helping individual students? Well, the first biggest one is helplessness, learned helplessness. So students have been in classrooms where this is being done year after year after year, and it is completely eliminated their ability to do for themselves. It's ironic that we call it independent practice when we're not allowing students to be independent, to work on this skill. And so it's as if this part of their brains just doesn't work anymore. You see them perplexed over something just really, really simple. Sometimes you see them trying to work the drinking fountain, things like that. And it's because that they've been helped so much during this time that they believe that they're dumb. And they haven't worked on these skills, and so they don't have the ability to, while you're teaching, make bullet points. They don't have the ability to visualize themselves doing it. They don't have the ability to ask questions to make sure that they understand. So this is the big one, and it is just crushing learning in schools right now. And this is why. It's the overhelping. The other thing is that when students know that you're going to be helping around the classroom, they tune you out. So listening suffers. Listening suffers. Why should they, or why would they listen during your lessons if they know you're going to run around and help anyway? Especially if they have trouble sort of seeing themselves. Even though you're teaching them, they have trouble seeing themselves doing the work because they always need someone to help them go, help them get started. And so this is a huge one. And the result of this is that kids are bored. When you teach your lessons, they're bored because of it. All right, next one. In these classrooms, in which is most classrooms, students don't ask many questions. They do individually because they want you to help them individually. Because they can't do it on their own, they know that you'll help them. But as far as like the class in general, before you send them off to do their independent work, I visit tons of classrooms and I don't see many questions. There should be tons of questions. There should be students paraphrasing and making sure they understand what you're asking of them. And this sort of thing, and pointed questions and specific questions about how they can be successful in their independent work. This has become almost non-existent. The next thing, of course, is that it's going to crush their confidence. It makes students believe that they're dumb when they're not. But it makes them think, it just crushes their academic, intellectual confidence. They think they can't do it because, well, you've shown them through all the extra helping day after day and year after year that they can't do it on their own. So what do you do instead? Well, instead you teach your lesson, you make sure you check for understanding, and then you shift responsibility to whatever it is. Do the work, solve for X, do the experiment. 100% over to your students, and your only job is to observe. You need to be very, very, very reluctant to help students. Now, we're going to get into the actual details, the nitty-gritty of this in a future video, but just know your job is to observe. It's not to sit and do your own thing or plan for the next activity or anything like that. You're not leaving them alone. You are watching and going to town, so to speak, on your next lesson. So you're looking on from a distance, not right over their shoulders. You're not making any comments. You're observing to make sure that your lesson was accurate and they're prepared to do the work. Okay? So the benefits, though, is the students become highly motivated over time. Highly motivated, especially during your original directed lesson. When they know they need that information to do the work that you're going to give them, they're much more motivated to listen to what you have to say, and it will start creating in their minds the ability to prepare themselves to know what you're asking and about your lesson. They can compartmentalize things. They can make their own lists that they can then recover while they're doing their independent work. Next thing is their self-worth skyrockets. And I've seen this over and over and over and over again. When you take a student who feels like they can't do it, and by the way, a lot of these students, they get identified as having learning disabilities, and they don't. And there's nothing wrong with them. They're below grade level, and we think, well, they're just they have trouble learning. They're slower, and they're still learning. We're trying to get them to catch up. Well, the biggest reason is that they have terrible self-worth because they think they can't do it. And this idea of thinking and knowing you can do it is a game changer for students. Okay, next thing is you'll then start seeing academic achievement go way up. And it's not fake. It's real academic achievement because they're actually practicing the work. Their production is much higher. You're able to give them 25 math problems instead of 3. You're able to ask for more and more and more, which is the idea of independent practice, is that we're building on skills. We're asking more and more of students constantly. This time on task, when they're spending time on task uninterrupted, and it's quiet so they can concentrate, and we're not hearing the teacher running around. We don't have our hands up waiting for the teacher to save us. The achievement goes up, which then again creates greater self-worth and more motivation. It all sort of works together. This all makes everything trend down. This makes everything trend up. And by the way, this is for every student, no matter how well they've done in the past or how poorly they've done in the past. It works for all. Final one is, finally, for a lot of these students, for the first time ever, they have a love of learning. which most of them have never experienced before. And when you teach them something cool, something interesting, and by the way, this kind of allows you, kind of frees you up. All of Smart Classroom Management frees you up to focus on teaching great lessons. And this is your big responsibility. And when you do this, and students are motivated to listen and ask questions, and then they have great success working independently, they tenaciously go off by themselves and they never even raise their hand anymore. They crush the work. They start developing this love of learning, this flow experience when you are concentrating so much and you're so pulled in and drawn in and absorbed in what you're doing. Time distorts, time flies, you lose track of anything going on around you. People can be talking and you don't even hear them. You're so focused on the task, and this is a wonderful state of being. This is what we want from our students. We want intrinsically motivated students who get lost in their learning. And everything we do at Smart Classroom Management is for this purpose. Now, the 3 keys to kind of pulling this off successfully are, first, of course, is compelling lessons. I've talked a little bit about this in previous videos. We're going to focus on this in subsequent videos. There's a chapter in the Happy Teacher Habits, the book, The Happy Teacher Habits. It kind of goes over how to make your lessons more compelling. And what's interesting is they're actually easier to plan than boring lessons, but it's important that you continually, every day, work on improving your lessons to make them more interesting for students. And again, this is something that anyone can do. We focus a lot on improving your content knowledge is also really important, that we'll talk about in the future. The next key is there has to be a thorough check of understanding. So as part of your lesson, there must be a lot of modeling and bringing students up to model and checking for understanding in a way that you know they understand what they need to do to be successful working in groups or working independently before you send them off to do the work. So this is critical. But it only works if you have this. So if you do this, but you run around and start helping students, it's sort of, you may check for understanding, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be able to take their understanding and transfer it into doing it on their own. Not unless they learn how to do it on their own. All right, third thing is, for your classroom, you have to set these expectations. So you set the expectations that during independent work, while you're working in groups, I'm not helping you. This is you. This is what independent means. You're working on your own, and the expectation is you're going to do it. And here's how you ask questions. Here's how you make sure you understand. Here's how you listen to lessons. Here's how you raise your hand to ask a question. So you give them, you provide the tools they need to be successful. But for me, first day of school, this is one of the first things I'm talking about. Here's what's expected in this class. Here's how it's going to work. And so you set that up and then you follow through on that. And the result is pretty amazing. The result is, like I said, all of these things and over time. And by the way, kids are resilient and they pick it up fairly quickly. 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, they start understanding and getting into it. And they start appreciating it. And so also, everything we do at Smart Classroom Management, we want kids to love being part of the class and to love learning. And so this is a big part of it. It's a big and important result that makes all this stuff sort of compound in the benefits. Now, the big question that I always get is, what happens if the student just sits there, does nothing? And here's what I'll say. They're more likely to sit there and do nothing if you're this kind of teacher than if you're this one. This encourages them over time to get going on their own. This is far more effective in getting those students to work who are just sitting there than if you're running around and helping those students, especially that one student. And so we're empowering them on their own, not to just sit there. But the question remains, but then what if it happens? What if you do all these things and there's a student just sitting there? This is a topic for another video. There are things that you can say to that student beforehand and during to get them going, to start gaining confidence and start giving them that little speck of a snowflake that turns and starts rolling down into a giant snowball. Okay, but we'll talk about that in a future video. As always, please do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below. I'd really appreciate it. Hope you're having a great week and a good summer, and I'll see you next time.